Proximity alters everything, from college professor to adult educator at the University Without Walls. The University Without Walls at UMass Amherst is an undergraduate degree completion program for adults who are returning to college after some time away. Many of the students had prior experiences with education that were less than stellar. One very important source of support for these students is their faculty advisor, a professor the student chooses to be her first teacher in the program and her advisor for her entire college career. At UMass and many institutions of higher ed around the country, there's a push to take advising responsibilities away from faculty and hand them over to professional advisors. Some professors at UWW are very concerned because all teachers there are faculty advisors, and as one put it, that role is something that's really core to us. So my overall research question was, how do UWW faculty advisors understand, describe, and learn about their dual role as teachers and advisors? In terms of methodology, I plan to use a grounded theory approach. I would not go into the study with any theory to prove or disprove. Rather, I would go in as open and unbiased as possible and simply listen to what people were telling me. Then I'd try to come up with some sort of theory grounded in that data. But as I started my interviews and read and reread the interview transcripts, I began to see that actually people were telling me about the process of becoming a UWW faculty advisor. Hey, I thought to myself, didn't phenomenology look at processes? So I promptly abandoned grounded theory and started to read up on phenomenology. It sounded good until I got to the importance of bracketing out my previous experience and knowledge. Well, that was a good reminder, and it helped me to separate what I already knew about UWW from what the participants were actually telling me. Something felt wrong for me. I didn't feel I could actually cut myself out of the picture entirely. But then I came upon heuristic inquiry. In that approach, the researchers encouraged to dive deep into her own experiences and use that as a way to better understand the participants' experiences and issues. I liked it. So I decided to try some of the methods associated with it, and I'll explain that in analysis later on. So I know some folks at UWW, and I knew it would be quick and easy for me to find willing participants. I asked one professor I know pretty well, one I had met several times but never talked with in depth, and one I had never met. Within 2 weeks, I'd interviewed them all, and I was entranced. 2 men, 1 woman, each with different disciplinary backgrounds, one with 2 years of experience teaching adults. They'd been at UWW between 2 and 8 years. I did 1-hour semi-structured interviews with each person and audio recorded it. And then I sent out 2 recordings to be transcribed, and I transcribed 1 myself. From grounded theory, I experimented with iterative analysis, going back over and over the data, memoing, trying to build theory, sort of a zigzag process out in the field, back at my kitchen table. I used open coding and lean coding. I reread the transcripts, listened to the interviews again, looked at recurring categories, reduced the number of codes. Following a tip from heuristic inquiry, I wrote about my own experiences coming into a new teaching job. I noticed the participants were having trouble finding simple words to describe the kind of teaching they were doing, so I looked to the scholarly literature and found some articles on teacher metaphors, which was a goldmine. Then I drew pictures, diagrams, went around in circles, had big epiphanies. I wrote a narrative summary of one of the interviewees in which I took the main ideas from the interview and incorporated them into a first-person account, which I sent to the participant as a member check. And I tried to create a framework to describe the themes I was seeing emerge from the data, but I got stuck there for days. Finally, I woke up one morning with a new epiphany, and since I really had no more time, I decided to trust that epiphany and go forth. For me, this study is a fascinating story about how college teachers evolve into adult educators. While one participant had some previous experience working with adults, the other 2 came into their jobs expecting to do what they had done with 18 to 22-year-olds, just online and with adults. They thought that the advising part of the job would be a separate set of activities involving helping students select courses and solve practical problems, kind of like what their advisors had done with them when they were undergraduates. But that's not what actually happened. All three of the participants said that by working with adults in the very engaged way that UWW expects, teachers and students come into much closer proximity, and that changes everything. Taking apart the faculty advisor role from the participants' perspective would now mean taking themselves apart as professionals and as people. It's like having a big cake and being asked to take it apart into flour, sugar, butter, salt. You just can't do that. The cake, like the faculty advisor, is an integrated entity. Even if you could take it apart in a laboratory, what would you be left with? Not cake. All right, that image didn't work for you? All right, it's like being a mother, say, and someone says to me, keep doing what you're doing, but take out the patience, the nurturing, the listening, and the understanding parts. All I'm left with is giving birth and driving people places for 16 years. Is that mothering? So how to express this as themes? By drawing closer to their students, these faculty advisors experienced a shift in professional identity from being a college professor to being what the adult learning and development literature refers to as an adult educator. Belenky et al. Described the role as being like a midwife. Brookfield called it the skillful teacher. Dallows called it the mentor. Frary called it the partner. Mesereau called it the emancipatory educator. Robertson said that all of these metaphors describe the adult educator as a person who establishes helping relationships with learners in order to promote transformational learning. The participants had become a kind of teacher for which there is a long established word, only they didn't know it. I felt great about that discovery for about a day or two until I realized it probably wasn't actually a theme. So I went to bed, and when I woke up, I finally came to something I decided to go with. Two themes, responsibility and reciprocity. The short story is that these teachers came to identify with their adult students as experienced adults with deep knowledge in many areas the teachers knew nothing about. The teachers learned from their students, not only the other way around. On the other hand, the teachers also felt very responsible for their students' success and for helping them as much as they could, so the students could overcome their sense of failure and finally get the degrees they were after. Here's how I understand it. Two of the three participants originally thought of advising as a one-way activity. Emailing people, making phone calls, learning what the answers are and then providing them, course selection. While there is some administrivia, most of what teachers do with students is not a one-way activity, however. Advising melts together with teaching, resulting in what all of the participants described as a relationship. One participant said that when he taught younger undergrads, there was a lot less one-on-one. In the role now, I know more about a person in terms of their whole life. Seeing the whole person, working with the whole person. I need to be just, I think, more present as a whole person myself. There's a fluidity being a faculty member on the one end, advising on the other, and mentorship which bridges it. Now in any given interaction, we float across that, and they do also, from advisees to mentees to students. As the teachers read and heard students' stories of past experiences with school, they remembered being students themselves, and in many ways they identified with their students' journeys into higher education. I had a lot of the same struggles that my students have in terms of trying to work, take care of children, go to school, all these things, and also feeling like, oh, I don't have what it takes. Of course, the faculty advisor is still in a professional role, and the student is in a role too, but boundaries are less clear now. The combination of teaching, advising, and mentoring, it resulted in the teacher's sense of position or their stance toward the student really changing. They moved from a more distant place to a relationship, one they not only nurtured, but are nurtured by. And that's why I called this theme reciprocity. At UWW, students take more responsibility for their own learning. They design their own degree plans. They use their past work and experiences as a lens through which to see and expand their knowledge. It's all based on adult learning and development theory. But from the faculty member's perspective, students taking more responsibility does not mean that teachers take less. At UWW, students are mostly working adults. They don't come to campus for the most part. The program is almost 100% online. The faculty advisor is the one person who serves as the bridge between the students' experiential learning outside the university and the students' experience inside the academic setting. And UWW communicates very clearly to all teachers that their first priority is supporting their students. In the UWW context, teaching plus advising means a very close engagement with students, their lives, and their emotions, and a big increase in responsibility for the teachers. But they need to attend very closely to their students' overall development as a human being. One participant said that at UWW, the expectation is that you're going to help them over the finish line. UWW is, after all, a degree completion program. These students have all started college previously and stopped. Some students are on the verge of leaving again. As one participant put it, I just don't want to douse the flame. So the ongoing question is, how much responsibility should the faculty advisor take in terms of the adult student's success? I don't have much time to say much about trustworthiness and limitations. Suffice it to say that I only did one-hour interview with each teacher and that I knew two of them to some extent. I used a very personal approach to analyzing the data, but it was also very systematic and well supported as a valid approach in the qualitative research literature. You are the one who needs to decide for yourself whether you trust what I've presented here, whether I've done it appropriately, and whether any of it might apply to your setting. Thanks for listening. I'd love to hear your feedback if you have any to share.